message in the chat. All right, so without further ado, I will hand it off to Alex.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everybody. And thank you so much for having me. I feel very lucky to be here, not vice versa. As Sarah said, I have been vegan for a long time. I'm a professional chef. I first went vegan in 1995 when I lived in Anchorage, Alaska, which is where I am right now. I moved to Alaska this summer. I was in California for 20 years. Just left, so I miss seeing so many familiar California faces. But I am now, I just moved into this condo a week ago, so I unpacked the kitchen just for the webinar today. Apologies in advance if I can't find something. And I mostly mention Alaska just to let you know, if I could go vegan 25 years ago in Alaska, I guarantee anybody can go vegan because it was not fun. We did not have delicious vegan ice cream back then. It was really hard to get a soy cappuccino. So we'll start off with that. So I work now for a group called Vegan Outreach, and there's a series called 10 Weeks to Vegan, and it's totally free. And I'm gonna do a couple recipes from that series. I'll also mention a couple recipes from the series, but not actually do them. But just so you all know, you can sign up at any time. It's free, and we never fundraise, and yes, I'm a fundraiser now, but we never fundraise from the people who sign up for 10 Weeks to Vegan. So it's one email a week for 10 weeks, and eat like 1 week is all the chicken recipes and information, and the next week you'll learn about eggs and vegan options for baking with eggs and things like that. So you'll get the link in your recipe packet. So I'm going to start the food today. And the same for 10 Weeks to Vegan. The food today is very simple. And I already know without asking, I'm going to guess, especially in Mountain View, 50, maybe 75% of you are really good cooks because the produce is amazing in California, and California is kind of a foodie state. So for those of you that, if you love to cook, if you have time to cook, if you're a real gourmet foodie or a chef at home or a chef in a restaurant, just know that these recipes are very, very basic. They're like the bottom, and then you can add to them. And I'll give a few tips for every recipe. But the goal is to keep things really simple. So for those of you in the with us right now who do not like to cook, or maybe you like to, but you don't have any time, maybe you're a student and you're on a strict budget, or, and this is what I hear most often from people trying to go vegan, is you are working a full-time job and raising a kid or kids plural. And that is tough. That was tough before the pandemic. And so I understand that it's really hard to think about completely changing the way you eat and shop. So hopefully this will make it seem a little more accessible. And I also want to say, if I am talking too fast at any point, just put it in chat or shoot Sarah a message, and she knows to slow me down. I'm a fast talker. So the first thing I'm going to do is the minestrone soup. And the focus on this soup is I want it to be, as all the recipes, fast, filling, and familiar. So, if a vegan recipe, if it's not easy and quick for you to put a vegan dinner on the table, you're not going to make a vegan dinner. And the same for anything healthy, whether or not you're vegan, right? When you get home at 8 o'clock and you were hoping, nope, I hear some background noise, and you were hoping to get home at 6, you don't get home till 8, kids are hungry, you're hungry, you're going to do the familiar thing. So this soup is one of those things that you can throw together quickly. It has fresh veggies, it has good protein, and it's also familiar tasting. So it's not going to be, again, on a Tuesday night when you're tired, you don't maybe want to experiment with the new recipe. So for those of you that love to cook, you can take it up a notch by sauteing fresh onions and garlic in the beginning, making your own stock, all that jazz. But I'm going to show just how easy it is. So first I'm adding 2 cups of water, and then I'm going to cheat. I could have done 4 cups of water, which is fine, but this is vegetable stock. And there's several different brands. There's so many, it's impossible to shop these days. There's so many vegan products. So it just, again, it's a cheating way. I love cheating whenever I can. And so it kind of adds some instant seasoning. Now the trick is to remember, if you use a vegetable stock, then you want to adjust the salt later. Most of these stocks have salt in them. So I'll do that later. And then I'm going to add crushed tomatoes. Again, you can use any kind you want, any brand. Right? And then I'm going to add chickpeas or garbanzo beans. Let me real quick move my cursor there. And you can use white beans. You can use any kind of bean that you want. These are just from a can. I always have cans of beans in my pantry because they're instantly filling, satiating, good source of protein, cheap. But if you don't like beans, you don't have to eat beans to be vegan. So we'll go over that in a second. So I'm going to just put this on the stove to cook. And then after it comes to a boil, I'll add the rest of the ingredients. And we'll see how I do with the stove that I'm still learning how to use. So wish me luck. If you see smoke behind me, any of you, feel free to speak up and warn me. Okay, so next I'm going to start the baked tofu, which is here. Okay. And I always talk to people about tofu because obviously it's something so many people are afraid of eating and using. And I hated it when I was a kid and my mom was trying to get us to eat healthier. And she brought home tofu one time in Iowa. And yeah, I didn't eat it for years afterwards. But think of tofu like chicken. If you have a chicken breast and you just boiled it in some water and then ate it like that, it would be bland, it would be boring, it would not have a good texture. You would never eat chicken like that. So tofu is the same. And a lot of people haven't worked with it before, so they maybe eat it raw or they don't have the right kind. There's different kinds of tofu, just like dark meat of chicken and the chicken breast versus the thigh, they cook differently. But once you get to use it, it's cheap, it is an excellent source of protein, and it takes on whatever you're making. The only difference is from chicken is, well, two differences. It doesn't have any cholesterol, it has much less fat, and it doesn't have the animal cruelty or the environmental impact and the pollution that the chicken factory farms have. So you can, this is a tofu press, and there's lots of kinds, and I'm actually not going to use it, but one thing you can do, I don't love this one. So I hope that you'll consider getting one, but you don't need one. And you just kind of put the tofu under there and press it. But see, that's why I don't love it. It takes too long to get it, up and down. So I'm going to put this to the side. But some people love their tofu press. So I just wanted to show you what it was. Another way to make tofu chewier is to freeze it overnight and then let it thaw. And so that, of course, means planning ahead a couple of days, but that makes it chewier. But it's also just really important, get extra firm tofu. And so this is the water-packed tofu that is fresh and it's refrigerated. If you buy the Mori New, the silken aseptic tofu that is not refrigerated, that, like this, you can cut. And with the more in it, and it's going to hold its shape. The aseptic tofu is, it just crumbles. It's very creamy, and that it makes a delicious dressing. And so you can almost use it like mayonnaise. Unfortunately, a lot of people buy it and then they go to grill it or saute it and it just kind of melts. So that's the first trick, is get fresh water-packed tofu. And then the way I always cheat, the best way to make, all the brands are so different. So if you end up with a block of tofu that isn't as firm as what you wanted, just bake it longer or saute it longer, because all you need to do is cook some of the liquid out. So for this tofu, and this is a real staple. So you can, and I don't usually chop up like this. I did it for the webinar, so sorry if it's a little awkward. So if you bake it in little cubes like that, it's going to bake much quicker, obviously. So you can do that if you're in a hurry. Now for the spring rolls, I like to do strips. Okay, so we'll do it like that. So let me just really quick. I'm gonna throw this in the oven and then move on to something else. While I finish these, slicing this tofu and putting it in the oven, does anybody have any questions yet about the minestrone or the tofu or anything else? Okay.
I don't see any questions, so I think we're good.
That's easy. Okay. So I'm gonna just toss this with the recipe says 1 teaspoon of oil. And I know that sounds like too little, but it really is that little. Now, if you're not vegan or plant-based, or you are, but you're cooking for someone who isn't yet, you might want to add more fat. Meat, heavy standard American diet, they have a lot of fat, and your taste buds get used to it. If you go vegan from eating meat and butter 3 times a day to just eating brown rice and broccoli, you're going to be really unhappy. And I did that the first time and it didn't stick. So, have some fun and use some fat and some salt, and you're still going to be cutting back on the fat and the salt that you get in your diet. Right, drizzle a little oil. So for this one, I don't need that much oil. 1, because it bakes up fine without it. But 2, I know that I'm going to be serving some of it in the spring rolls. It has a rich, creamy peanut sauce, and some of it in a salad later tonight with my favorite salad dressing, which is Annie's Goddess dressing, which is very rich. So let me put this in the oven. Okay, we are boiling already. I'm impressed. And don't worry, I'll bring this over to show you. But really quick, I'm going to add, these are frozen Brussels sprouts. This is a personal thing. I love Brussels sprouts. So I'm going to add them because they take a little bit longer to cook. But you can see in the recipe that I said just a bag of your favorite frozen vegetables. So in a minute, I'll add these. And I always keep some in the freezer. It's so easy to just quickly add to a pot of rice and beans, to a pot of minestrone, pasta, tomato sauce, chickpeas, and frozen vegetables. Boom. That's a great dinner. And it's going to take minutes to get on the table. So I'll add that in a second. Let me just give this a stir. Okay. And since this is a virtual class, which I haven't done before, I am going to be eating that whole pot of soup myself. So that's why I'm putting the Brussels sprouts in for me. And at the end of it, we are going to add tofurkey sausage. So we're going to have a couple vegan meats tonight. And I wanted to show you all how to cook with vegan meat and how to cook without it. I love vegan meat. They are convenient. They're very familiar tasting. Meat eaters love them. They're delicious. They're a great source of protein. Some of them are very high in sodium. So that's why I like to do this. I will slice it up and put it in the soup at the end instead of, so that stretches it out. Others have a much lower sodium. Some are gluten-free, some aren't. It's no different than cheese or milk. Everyone here on the webinar, I'm sure there's some kinds of milk that you like, skim, 1%, heavy cream, and some that you hate. So a fun way to try all these different vegan meats is to have a potluck with tough with the pandemic, sorry. If you would have a safe potluck outdoors, you're in California, you could go outdoors, and have everybody bring a different vegan meat or cheese or vegan milk, and then you can all taste the different ones and you don't all have to buy them all. All right, I'm gonna add the rest of the frozen vegetables. It's a very dramatic stove. It's an energetic boil, to put it mildly. And then this pasta, and you can get gluten-free pasta. You can get any kind you like. I love these little mini kind of ears. See if I can get it up there. But you can also do the elbow macaroni, anything. And for kids, if you have kids in the house, you can do little stars or the alphabet, anything like that. And you don't have to use pasta at all. You can serve the soup on rice or on a baked potato. Again, because pasta is such a familiar food for so many different cultures and so many different families, I always try to do at least one recipe for these classes. So I'm going to just pour in half of this.
Hey, Alex, we have quite a few questions. Is it okay if I read?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, the first one is, can we eat too much tofu? Are there soy product limits?
Oh, that is a great question. Thank you so much. Yes, if you eat soy 3 times a day, 7 days a week, then that's going to be a problem. Just like, again, if you eat meat 3 times a day, 7 days a week, you're going to probably have some cholesterol issues and heart issues. And so eating any one thing is a problem. But the issue with soy that people talked about for years was about the, I can't think, soy is excellent. The breast cancer, thank you. So not only now have they done more and more studies on tofu and soy products, they're finding, and this is not for sure yet, and at the Vegan Outreach website and in the 10 Weeks to Vegan, we have a ton of nutrition information that is all free. In fact, you don't have to sign up for the series. It's just on the website where they kind of go through all the different mainstream studies, not vegan studies of the past 10 years. And it looks like soy may help prevent breast cancer, but that's still not sure, but they're no longer worried at all about it causing breast cancer. Sorry about my hair, although again, since none of you are eating this food, doesn't matter if I touch my face. So I eat soy every day for sure. I love soy milk in my coffee. That is my favorite kind of coffee creamer. And let's see, I don't eat tofu every day. I don't have it 3 times a day, but I love it. To me, it is versatile. It's delicious. And the protein is great. And sorry, I'll just stop there. And next question.
Okay, the next question was a clarifying question on why do we freeze the tofu overnight and what do you do with it the next day?
Oh, thank you. Good question. So if you freeze your tofu and then thaw it, it gets really chewy. So it gets and it crumbles. It's like ground beef. So if you were going to make a ground beef dish like tacos or spaghetti sauce with ground meat in it, if you plan ahead, then it just has this wonderful mouthfeel. Is why. You don't have to do it, but it's a nice addition. So that's why.
Great. And then the next question, a few people asked what temperature the oven is at.
Oh, 350. That would help. I'm so sorry. It's at 350. Now, with the tofu, the nice thing is you really can't mess it up. So earlier today, I was roasting a squash and I had the oven at 400. Tofu could be there. Just, if it's a new recipe, start a little bit lower so that you don't run the risk of burning it. But the longer it cooks and or the higher temperature, the chewier it'll get and the more golden brown. So you can't go wrong. So I'm going to put, sorry, did you have another question?
Yeah, we have 2 more.
Okay.
How do you address a soy allergy? Are there vegan meats that don't contain soy?
Yes, that is a great question. I meant to follow up with that. Yeah, there's some vegan meats that are based on gluten, which is wheat. Some are based on soy. Some are based on pea protein now. And that is one of the, I think, more exciting trends of the last couple of years are these new products out there with based on pea protein, high in protein, but they work for people with celiac disease, so they can't have gluten, and they work for people who don't want to eat or can't eat soy.
Awesome. And then we have the next question. If you are cooking oil-free, can you bake the tofu with broth or water?
Oh, yes. Yes, and I will try to remember to add oil-free tips for the recipes going forward. Absolutely, you can. Yep. In fact, that'll be good. And now if you use it with broth instead of water, you just want to remember at the end when you toss it with the tamari, you won't want to use as much because the broth has salt and the tamari has salt. Yeah.
Thank you. And then actually one more question. In your experience, can you use tofu past the expiration date?
Well, yes and no. I don't think anybody should use food past the expiration date. And if it is fresh water-packed tofu, then that's almost like fresh meat, and it's going to be more delicate. If it's the silken aseptic tofu, if it was a couple months past, but no more, probably a lot of you know, the expiration date is more about marketing than anything. I hate food waste, but I also, from the restaurant industry, foodborne illnesses, I'm pretty paranoid. So if it's water-packed tofu, if it's a week or two past, it's probably fine. You'll know, it's like meat. If it doesn't smell good, it doesn't smell good. If it smells okay, rinse it under fresh, cold water, and then dry it, press it, whatever you want. Yeah. But if you have tofu and it's coming up on the expiration date and you don't think you're going to use it, pop it in the freezer. And then you can do the frozen thaw thing. So I am just adding a little bit of herb. So the recipe just calls for a mixed Italian seasoning. Now, again, if you love to cook and you love to garden and you have a California herb garden, you can do all fresh herbs, and I would add them at the end. But this is just one of those ways to cheat. It's quick, it's easy, it adds great flavor. But I'm actually adding this. Alaska has these wonderful farmers markets, and this is this herb blend, and it has garlic flakes, basil, sage, rosemary, salt, and toasted pepper. So it smells amazing. So I'm going to cheat and add that. And then let me give this a stir really quick. Oh, this is looking nice. Okay, so we've got the tofu cooking. Any other questions? We're going to go on to the squash.
I think that's it for right now.
Okay, so this is not in your recipe packet, but I thought I should do it because I made a mistake in your recipe packet, which you might actually not see, thanks to Sarah being wonderful, in the mug cake. But this is a butternut squash. It's a hard winter squash. And it's just a great tip since it's fall, and I didn't think about it till today. You can take this whole thing. I don't poke it. I don't cut it in half. I do nothing. I put it in the oven like it's a potato, and maybe put it on parchment paper or foil. But I just put it in like that. And then it comes out like this. I love this recipe. So it comes out nice and soft, and I already cut it in half. And then the skin just peels off. So the reason I love doing this, beta carotene, squash, it's an incredible food, right? It's really healthy. It's filling. It has that sweet, creamy taste that our mouths are used to. But it's hard to it's a rock hard squash, and it's rolling around, and you're trying to cut it, and you cut your finger. So this is something now that fall is coming, you can just pop your squashes in the oven, and then you can slice it and eat it with maple syrup or soy sauce. I could add it to the soup. I usually have a baked squash in my fridge every week. So I'll put this away. And this is a kabocha squash. So you can do that same thing with acorn, kabocha, any hard winter squash. You don't have to cut it or poke it. Just bake it like a potato, and then you can scoop it out and eat it. And for those of you on oil-free diets, that is such a satiating, wonderful food, winter squash, and it's so healthy. And my email will be on your recipe packet. So if you need any other, if you get any questions or anything about that, let me know. All right, now I'm going to make the spring rolls next. The soup is simmering. Okay, so these are they're the same product. It's two different, let's see here, you can see them. So what they are, they're just rice. It's just rice and water that have been dehydrated. And I'm sure you have all had a million of these. Let's move this to the next one. They're usually served with peanut sauce, sweet and sour sauce. 1 second, I'm going to run water. Pardon me in advance for the noise. Okay. This is a great recipe to make with kids because you don't have to do a lot or any cooking, really, now that I think about it. And you can get really creative with the filling. So it can be almost like a pizza bar. You know, you can have all sorts of different fillings. You can have fresh mango. You can have avocado, which I wanted, but guess who just moved to Alaska and the avocados are horrible. So I hope you all eat an avocado for me tomorrow. So it's just warm water. And the reason it's in a frying pan is I just wanted something big and round because I'm going to sit the spring roll wrapper in it to soak. Here, let me show you exactly what I'm doing. And it needs a little more. You can see it's not quite pliable yet. So I'll do that in 1 second. Let's see here. Now, if you're in a hurry and you're used to making these, you can use the water can be more hot and then they'll soften up quicker. If you're new or you're working with kids, you can do cold water. I mean, it can be ice water. And that just takes it longer, which means you'll have more time to kind of mess around with the fillings and make mistakes or not make mistakes. Let's see here. All right, then I'm going to give it 1 more second. Okay. So now it's like this weird but wonderful thing that you could just fill with any ingredient. So I'm going to put it down flat. I think you can see okay. And it's just like rolling up a burrito. So this is Napa cabbage. You can use any kind of cabbage. Oh, where's my mint? Sorry. I want to get the mint so that you can see it. So I'm going to put the mint leaves, which add a really nice flavor because the peanut sauce is so rich. So this has like a nice kind of a bite of flavor. And I want them to show. So then I'm just going to do a little bit of cabbage, a little bit of grated carrot. Now, again, if you love to cook, you can have a blast with the filling. You can get really gourmet. You can dress the filling beforehand with rice wine vinegar and toasted sesame oil, but this is just plain. And so then you just roll it up. I'm hoping it kind of works there. And then tuck in the edges. And then, all right. So now the mint shows on the outside. And it's just a simple little thing. So I'm going to let that sit for a second while I make the peanut sauce. But first, oh my gosh, I have to do another one. I forgot the meat. There we go. I'm going to give it some hot water. Okay. So I have some vegan meat for you to consider. I wish we could be there in person. Every time I open that refrigerator, I see a bowl of chocolate chip cookie dough, and I really want to eat it. Okay, so this is what the tofu looks like when it's done. So you'll see me make it, but I made this earlier today. So you see it's chewy and golden brown. Well, I guess you can't see if it's chewy, but it's chewy. And so it has that really nice kind of golden outside. And then I got 3 different kinds. So this is Sweet Earth Mindful Chicken, and it is this one. And I love this chicken. It has really good flavor, but it's mild. So it's perfect if you're, using it in a stew or soup or something. And it is, I think, gluten-based. No, this one is soy. The Morning Star chicken looks like this. I didn't love it. That's kind of a lie. This is the first time I had it. It's just not as bland as I would want. It's well seasoned, which is fine. But for my purposes, I want a really basic, almost like a tofu or a plain chicken breast. But this one would be fine if you wanted to toss it with pasta. And Morning Star is a really easy company to find. And this one, like meat, I can't keep up with the new products anymore. So I actually wanted one of the pea protein chickens, and they were out of that, but I found this instead. And that one is this one. So you can see it's this is the like meat, and this is the Sweet Earth. they look pretty much the same. They taste like chicken. Wow, I really like the sweet earth. That is by far my favorite. So when you make a spring roll, oops, I was talking and it got too soft. It might work. Okay, it'll work. If they get too soft, they'll disintegrate. But they're inexpensive. So, again, if you have kids or if you're just learning, it's like when you make pancakes, the first one comes out funny. So for this next one, I'm gonna, I think I'll add cabbage, carrots. Oh, that's it. And then I'm gonna add, a piece of, I'm gonna add some green leaf lettuce that was just grown in Alaska. And then I think I'll do the tofu, but any of these would work as a nice protein. Yeah, I'll do the tofu. And again, you don't have to have it, especially if it's just an appetizer. You might want just the veggies. If you add the protein, then you will get, obviously you'll get more full and you'll be more comfortable. And then let me add the mint. And that is kind of common that people tend to go vegan, or they try to go vegan at first. And it's really easy to eat, pasta and rice and all that, but you do need protein. And if you don't get enough protein, even whether you're on a meat diet or not, you won't feel as great. And so if often the executive director of Vegan Outreach, Jack Norris, he's a registered dietitian. And people go to him for advice often, and they'll say, I've been vegan for a year. I'm just not feeling amazing. I feel kind of run down. I think I should start eating chicken or beef again. And he'll ask what they're eating, and they're not getting enough protein. They're having lots of salads and pastas. And so he will always say, before you go back to meat, try eating a veggie burger every other day, or some tofu or a can of beans. And 9 times out of 10, it instantly solves the problem. So let me roll this up. So I try to eat, and it also, of course, matters your age and how much you exercise. And my mom is up here. I moved back because my parents are getting older. My mom is 80. She still does triathlons. She's vegan. And I'm always making sure that she gets a lot of protein because she works out so much. I can't keep up with her. I'm 51 and I can't keep up with my 80-year-old wonderful mother. So this is another way to make, so that kind of the lettuce sticks out at the end and you've got the tofu in there. Okay. So we will come back when we do the peanut sauce. Any other questions?
Yeah, we had a few questions on
Great.
how long and at what temperature you bake the butternut squash for, and if you can bake it whole.
Yes, you would think that I would have told you how long. I'm so sorry, everyone. So it's 350 is a good base, but you can do 300, you can do 400, but say 350, and it's about 40 minutes. Each squash, of course, is different. Some are huge, some, this is kind of the meat of the butternut squash. And for some squashes, this part's very thin. So it just depends on the squash itself. So maybe check it at 30 minutes, but you can't mess it up. It's done when you can poke a knife in it easily. So it just feels like butter. And that's it. It'll be all kind of golden brown and messy on the outside and delicious. Your house will smell amazing. And if it gets, it really can't get overdone. It'll just be extra creamy. So lighting's a little weird. Okay. So yes, that's the squash. And there was another question. Yeah.
Can you bake them whole? Somebody asked.
That's the fun part. You can do, I don't do anything to it. I don't prick it. I don't cut it in half. I don't peel it. I throw the whole thing in the oven just like this. And then when it's soft, I lost my squash. There it is. And then when it's soft, it comes out baked, and it's kind of the skin gets all wrinkly, but then it's tender on the inside. The seeds just fall off instead of wrestling with a rock hard thing. Sorry, let me get over here. And the skin just peels off. So it's really easy then to eat the rest of the week, for the
Great.
rest of the day.
And then one
Yes.
last question is, how long do you bake the tofu?
20 minutes. I'm hesitating again because give it about 20 minutes. It's a personal preference, but it also, again, like so many different kinds of meat or different fish, really, it depends on the product and it depends on how chewy you want it. So I would start at 20 minutes, and then if you want it to have a little more color, leave it in there. You're not going to mess it up. And this is going to be a little tricky to cut the ginger up here, but I will. Any other questions before I make, sorry, I didn't want to keep people late. Before I make the peanut sauce.
One last question, and then that's all we have
Great.
for now. And what's the best way to store leftover spring rolls so the wrapper doesn't dry up?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. They're covered well, and they don't last as long. So everything else I'm making here today is just, it's wonderful leftover food. The soup, the peanut sauce, but the spring rolls, right, after like 2 days, the filling is fine, but the outside gets really chewy, too chewy. So I'm chopping fresh ginger, and I'm sorry to do it down here, but I can't chop hard and fast up there. So just a second, I'll finish it. Okay. So the ginger, so fresh ginger and fresh garlic, they add a ton of flavor to cooking. However, they can go bad fast, and they can be a real pain to do. So one thing you can do is get a big thing of ginger, peel it like I just did, and then use what you need for this recipe. And the rest of it, so like kind of 1-inch pieces, I put in a jar in the freezer. And I also in the freezer have a jar of peeled garlic cloves. And they freeze beautifully. And then you just pull out 1 or 2 for a recipe that you're making. They don't even have to thaw. In fact, they're easier to chop if they're still a little frozen. So that's a quick way to add kind of a real yummy fresh burst of flavor. So for the peanut sauce, I'm using a dark roasted peanut butter. And of course, you can use crunchy, creamy, dark roasted, whatever you prefer. And then it gets a little, it's a little hard to stir at first. So that's why the recipe calls for some hot water. And if you're having a party, peanut sauce is great to make in a food processor or blender. I almost said a food blender. Okay, let me give this a stir. And then so these are 2 of the more expensive ingredients that I recommend. The good thing is you don't need much, and they last forever. So you'll buy it one time, and you might still be using it a year from now, bit by bit. So this is the chili garlic paste, and it smells delicious. And so, of course, you can add more than the recipe calls for if you like spicy. And then maple syrup, and you can just use brown sugar to save, which is cheaper than maple syrup. And you don't have to use any sweetener. This is a tough one. A lot of restaurants, there are many, many brands of pre-made vegan peanut sauces that you can cheat with and use. For me, a lot of them are too sweet. It's almost like eating peanut butter ice cream for dessert. But if you like it that way, you can add more. If you have less of a sweet tooth, then you don't have, you don't need the sweetener. And then I'm going to add, and the fresh lime. This is a nice touch. And I kind of smash lemons and lime first. It'll release more of the juice. And, oh, I forgot. I'm going to do a little lime zest, which you don't have to do. It's easier to do before you cut it, which is what I just did. Yeah. And it's just a little silly, fun thing to do because it's adorable and delicious. So that juice of half a lime. Okay, and you can use rice wine vinegar instead. And so, of course, that's not perishable. Okay. You can keep that in your kitchen longer than a fresh lime, and limes can be expensive. Give it 1 second. I need the tamari. Oh, and tamari. So I am using gluten-free tamari, and it's like soy sauce. The difference is it's gluten-free. And my sister, who's also up here, she has celiac. So I have a lot of gluten-free products in my house. I also like the taste of tamari. It's a little bit milder, more mild than soy sauce. 1 sec here for some noise. Okay. But you can use soy sauce. Wherever it says tamari, you can use soy sauce, and soy sauce is cheaper. So whichever one, they both keep for a long time. Okay, there we go. So that's the yummy peanut sauce. So what I would do for this, if you have, we have one spring roll, just plain. And then we have our spring rolls with the lettuce tops and the tofu. There, let me get my spoon. And then you can just drizzle it. And of course, you can also do a little ramekin. And then you don't have to, but a nice touch is roasted peanuts on top. Oh, and I don't have cilantro. The recipe calls for cilantro. They didn't have any. I would recommend it. I know there are some people on this call who hate cilantro because you are super tasters, and I respect that. I don't agree with it, but I absolutely respect it. So maybe it was meant to be that I couldn't find it today, but it would be really pretty, I think, garnished with cilantro. You can just garnish with a little chopped mint and the peanuts. And then you've got a really nice appetizer. And again, this can be messy and fun with kids. It can also be very elegant and very fresh and gourmet if you're having a party. Okay, and then really quick, let me show you. Let's see. Your ladle. Here we go. Okay, so the soup. And I almost poured it all over the floor. So you can see that the pasta expanded, so it got really thick and yummy, and it's tomatoey. It's got the Brussels sprouts for me. Well, the tofurkey is also for me. Pretty much the whole thing is for me. But again, you can, so this has beans and tofurkey. You can do just one for your protein. You don't have to have protein in this soup if you don't want it, but hopefully you'll have it somewhere else in your meal. And then the pasta can be your choice. And the vegetables could be fresh that you just pick from your California garden, or they just a bag of frozen that you happen to have on hand. And again, I always have some in my freezer. All right. Any questions before I just really quick talk about the mug cake, and then we'll be out of here.
Like we have one question, and it says, when lime gets really hard, is it still usable?
Oh, yeah, it's still usable. It's just frustrating because it's really hard. When a lemon or lime or orange are bad, you'll know they're bad because they have mold or a soft spot where your thumb goes in. Yeah, you're just not going to get a lot of juice from it if it's gotten old and hard.
And we actually just got one more question asking if you could recommend a gluten-free pasta.
Oh my gosh. No, it's so hard. There's so many. My sister's favorite and mine, I think, are the red lentil pasta, and there's an edamame that we just discovered. So both of those have more protein, but we also just like the texture better. The brown rice pasta is the most common. I think that was the first gluten-free one on the market, but it can disintegrate if you overcook it, which is pretty easy to do. So I would recommend, looking for the lentil or edamame gluten-free pastas. If you look now, there are a million brands of and I just shop, there's no Whole Foods in Alaska. So, Fred Meyer's, Walmart, Safeway, all of these ingredients just came from mainstream stores. There's nothing fancy up here. I mean, the Northern Lights are very fancy, but not the stores. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna make the mud cake. And this is where I messed up, so I have to apologize. And I think Sarah's gonna fix it, but the recipe that I first gave for Sarah had too much of the dry ingredients, so. Okay, so this is kind of the whole point of the webinar, because you don't need anything else if you can make a good mud cake, I think. Okay, so this is flour. You can use any gluten-free flour. You can use regular flour, doesn't matter. Pop it in there. And this is cocoa powder, unsweetened cocoa powder. I like the Dutch process, the darker, but any cocoa powder works. This is sugar. This is organic. It does not have to be organic. And you can adjust it depending on your preference and what you put in it. So if you're serving it with chocolate chips or chocolate sauce, you might want less. And then this is baking powder. Make sure I got that right. And then I'd already put just a tiny pinch of salt in there. I'm just stirring the dries together. And then this is ripple. Oh, let me show you. I should have left it. This is ripple. Sorry. It is a pea milk, which is awkward to say. I cannot deny it, but it is delicious. And it is soy-free, it is gluten-free. I don't like almond milk because it tends to have very little protein and it's mostly water and sugar. It does work great for some things, but I prefer soy milk or ripple for mine. And I like some of the new flax milks out there. It doesn't matter what vegan milk you use, any kind that you like. Rice milk is fine. So you just pour in the milk or pour it on this cutting board, as the case may be. Give it a little whisk. Okay, so now it looks like cake batter because it is. Then I'm gonna add chopped walnuts and the very important chocolate chips. And these are organic. Most dark chocolate is vegan, but not all. So you have to check, some adds milk. But most dark chocolate is naturally vegan, even, the mainstream, the Ghirardelli, the Hershey's. So just pretend my hands are the measuring spoon. Okay, I think it says a tablespoon. Okay, and then I'm going to give this a little stir. And yes, I do eat this all the time. This is a great way to, if you have a sweet tooth, and not make a whole cake. So that's it. Pardon my mess. And then I'm going to microwave it for, it's a big mug. I'm going to do 1 minute and 5 seconds. Right. And then when it comes out, I made this one earlier. It's really good after it comes out to sit for, 5 or 10 minutes, and I don't want to keep you waiting. So I just made this one earlier today, and it's just a delicious chocolate cake that you literally just eat out of the mug. And I made an extra one just to show you all another trick to cheating. So this is an upside down mug cake. I hope it comes out. See, oh, it's beautiful. I love it. Okay, this is a little over the top. This is a nectarine and pistachio upside down cake. And what I did, I used pancake mix. And you can use Bisquick, you can use fancy organic, whatever. A lot of them have dried milk powder. So check the ingredients, but a lot of them are vegan. And I just, it's like turning breakfast into cake pretty much. So I buttered the mug with vegan butter, and then I put the pistachios and the nectarine in the bottom. You can kind of see what's left there. And then I put the batter on top of it, and then I microwaved it for 1 minute and 5 seconds. And that was about an hour ago, so it had time to chill. And I love it already. I can't wait to eat it. And I'm sorry that, I'm doing this in front. Oh yeah, it came out really nice. And you can also use cake mixes. The reason I like, I don't know if you can see that okay. I like the pancake mix because again, I usually add the sugar in other ways. So the fruit is going to be really sweet because when it cooks, the sugars caramelize a bit, chocolate chips. But you can totally, if you've got a sweet tooth or you're cooking for someone who is not used to healthier eating, use a cake mix and just go on, use the sugar, use the fat, make it a fun experience instead of a miserable experience, and they're more likely to stick with it. And last but not least, the cookies. These are just the chocolate chip cookies. You have the recipe for it. And I figure most of you know how to make chocolate chip cookies. This is the butter I use, but there's some, sorry, I'm getting used to this kitchen. Usually I use Earth Balance because that's the first vegan butter. It's what I know the best. But Miyoko's is probably the best vegan butter. It's just really expensive. So I usually have Miyoko's, but I use it on, toast or something where the butter is going to be much more important. And so in cookies, this was delicious though. I loved it. And so you can use your regular recipe for chocolate chip cookies, use this butter instead of regular butter. For eggs, you can use the flax meal, which just looks like cinnamon. But they also have now, there's called Just Egg. It's literally a liquid. You just use 1 tablespoon of Just Egg instead of an egg. It's an exact replica. And especially for those of you down there in California, you can get any egg replacer. And the 10 Weeks to Vegan series has a whole section on eggs, egg replacer, all of that. But I love how this recipe came out. And a little bit golden brown, crispy on the outside, very cakey, tender on the inside, lots of chocolate chips. And this is the cookie dough. I just wanted to show you that it looks just like any other cookie dough, but it doesn't have raw eggs, so you can eat it raw. Okay. Any questions while I eat my cookie dough?
Yeah, we have quite a few. I just want to be mindful of people's time. It is 7:30, but we do have a few questions. So the first one is, do you have an opinion on oat milk in general?
I love oat milk. Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I think there's a couple brands that I've been reading maybe are super high in fat. I think that's what the cafes are using because, of course, they need the higher fat for their coffee drinks. But most of them are not. I think it's creamy. I love oat milk. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it.
Great. And then the next question is, can I bake the mug cake that you made instead of microwaving it?
Yeah, you can. I mean, I guess you just need to make sure that your mug is oven proof, which I guess, yeah, I mean, you could do a ramekin. Yes, you can. I haven't though. So I will tell you that if you want to email me, you'll have my email on your recipe packet. So whoever just asked that question, I could try that because you know what? My mom doesn't have a microwave either. I should really find that out. So I'll try it and email me and I will let you know before you have to try it.
Thank you. And then the next and last question is, can you freeze the cookie dough to use later?
Yes, it freezes perfectly. Absolutely. In fact, I hope I freeze this because if I eat the cookie dough and the cookies and the cake and the other cake, I'm going to have a problem.
Well, thank you so much. That was so wonderful. I can't wait to try all these recipes myself. And as I mentioned in the chat, I will send all of you the recipes after the event, probably tomorrow morning. And we have a bunch of people saying thank you in the chat. So I just
thank you.
Say thank you so much, Alex. Like you were so wonderful and we really appreciate it.
Oh, Sarah, thank you. I just can't believe what you all are doing. I wish they would do it here in Anchorage. So this is great. And don't miss Monica's class because she is an amazing speaker. So she's on November 2nd, and I know her. She's in California. She has not left for Alaska. So yeah, thank you, Sarah, and City of Mountain View, and everybody for doing this on your workday evening. Thanks.
Thank you so much.